the making of Twister was completely cursed. Twisters, its sequel, hits theaters this weekend. So here are some things I bet you never knew about the original. The story of Twister starts with some CGI test footage in 1994. ILM wizards Habib Zagorpour and Dennis Murin were instructed by Amblin, Steven Spielberg's production company, to create a short scene of a pickup truck driving up to a tornado and make it look as real as possible. It apparently looks so good, Warner Brothers and Universal came on board making a full-length movie just off of that test short. The two companies literally flipped a coin for who would get the international versus the domestic distribution rights. Spielberg himself was initially going to direct Twister, and he hired Jurassic Park author Michael Crichton and his then wife Anne-Marie Martin to write the script. The duo was paid $2.5 million for their effort, and they based the screenplay off a PBS documentary about some real storm chasers, as well as the romantic comedy plot of His Girl Friday. And Joss Whedon would later do some uncredited script doctoring on the movie. Dorothy, the device that they use in the movie, was inspired by Toto, an instrumented barrel-shaped device that was used by real tornado researchers in the 1980s. Warner Brothers and Universal would later be sued by two different screenwriters claiming copyright infringement on scripts that they had written. Daniel Perkins, who wrote a script called Tornado Chasers, settled out of court, and Stephen B. Kessler, who wrote a script called Catch the Wind, had his case dismissed. Spielberg would then eventually step aside as director, but remained on as producer, and Jan de Bont would take over directing duties after his success with Speed. But James Cameron, Tim Burton, and Robert Zemeckis were all considered at one point or another. Helen Hunt was de Bont's first choice for Jo, but he had to fight to get her into the movie because she was mostly known for TV at the time. And then at first, Hunt wasn't even interested in the role because she didn't know what she could bring to it, but she was later convinced after a meeting with de Bont and Spielberg. That said, she almost quit the movie just a few weeks before it started shooting because she had injured her knee and wasn't sure if she'd be able to do it physically. Tom Hanks read for the role of Bill, but eventually passed and suggested Bill Paxton. During pre-production, the National Severe Storms Laboratory in Norman, Oklahoma, worked closely with the film. They trained the crew on weather safety, had the actors visit their facilities, and even brought them along on a tornado chase. The movie then went into production in spring of 1995. The budget was supposed to be $70 million. The studio initially wanted to shoot the movie in the UK and California, but de Bont insisted on Oklahoma, and he got his wish. The movie shot all over the state, including days in Fairfax, Ralston, Maysville, Norman, K-City, Guthrie, Stillwater, and Wauketa. And if I'm mispronouncing Wauketa, I'm sorry. Older parts of Wauketa were actually demolished for the scene showing the aftermath of an F4 tornado. And that said, some scenes were also shot in Iowa. Production was a real bitch, as reported on extensively by Entertainment Weekly. Some extraordinarily bright lightning on set temporarily blinded Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt. And one day, after being covered in windswept dirt while filming in a ditch, the two of them reportedly needed to get hepatitis shots. Helen Hunt hit her head a couple of times on set, and actual bad weather severely plagued the production, including hail, lightning, floods, and mud, which led to a lot of chaos and shifting schedules. A number of crew members left the production after 5 weeks because they felt de Bont didn't have things under control. One day on set, de Bont reportedly pushed over a camera assistant who missed a cue. And so the cinematographer Don Burgess and his crew walked off set in response, and then a week later, they all quit the film. Jack N. Green then came on as a replacement cinematographer with his own people, but then he was sadly injured in a hydraulic set accident and needed to be hospitalized. De Bont then took over as his own director of photography. De Bont ended up shooting 1.3 million feet of film. For context, 300,000 feet is the typical max amount a feature would shoot. When production went over schedule by 2 weeks, Helen Hunt's sitcom Mad About You had to delay its production. But there are also some cool facts about the way the movie was shot. A Boeing 707 airplane engine was used to generate wind throughout the film. They dropped real tractors onto the road via helicopters, and ILM technicians spent hours and hours fine-tuning the CGI twisters, making sure they looked as realistic as possible. But the hardest part of post-production was apparently compositing the digital and the filmed images, because the camera was constantly moving. The sound of the storms was a mix of lion roars, tiger growls, camel moans, and jet engine whooshes. Due to reshoots and post-production overtime hours at ILM, the budget soared to roughly $90 million. Twister was supposed to be released on May 17, 1996, and its first trailer included a brief clip from that early CGI test short. But the film's release was then moved up to May 10th, to avoid Mission Impossible. It did $41.1 million opening weekend before going on to make a massive $494.5 million total worldwide. And this rollout literally changed blockbuster season forever, proving that it could start in early May. The movie includes a scene of a tornado hitting a drive-in movie theater, and in real life on May 24th, 1996, a tornado did hit an Ontario drive-in movie theater, carrying the movie. It destroyed one of its screens. This didn't happen while the movie was actively playing. It was scheduled for later that night. Critics were mostly positive on the movie. Today, 67% of the 136 reviews assessed by Rotten Tomatoes are positive. It was nominated for 2 Oscars, Best Sound and Best Visual Effects, and it ended up having a positive and negative effect on meteorology and real storm chasing. After the movie, the number of meteorology majors in the United States grew by 10%, and the University of Oklahoma's meteorology department doubled in size. Helen Hunt's character is credited with bringing more women into the field, which was mostly male-dominated, and a lot more people started chasing storms, which led to tensions between the veteran chasers and new ones looking to make a quick buck by selling storm footage to the media or offering guided tours for thrill-seeking tourists. A number of props and sets from the movie are now on display at a Twister museum in Wauketa, Oklahoma. The movie spawned a pinball machine, a beloved theme park attraction at Universal Studios Florida in 1998, which made you feel like you were standing in the middle of a storm. Unfortunately, that attraction would later close in 2015 to make room for Race Through New York starring Jimmy Fallon. And now, yes, there is a sequel, which is in theaters this weekend.